Hey there friends, today we are taking a look at Hippie Crafter's 72 count of watercolor pencils. I did have the chance to test and review their 36 half pan watercolor paint set about a week and a half back, so if you missed it, do take time to check it out. I will try to remember to link a card in this video or put the link in the video description for you. Now, this set of pencils came wrapped in plastic, which I did take time to remove. The actual tin itself is wrapped in a belly band of branding information, which is very different from any other watercolor pencil set I've ever tested. Now, the back of the band is going to contain all of the relevant information about the pencils. It says the pencils have smooth texture, are easy to work with, and that they work well wet or dry. The package continues by stating that the pencils work like traditional color pencils when applied dry. When wet, they blend for watercolor effects, and it states that for the most pigmented effect, you can dip the pencil tip in water before drawing, which many pencil manufacturers seem to suggest against for some reason. There is the suggestion that for the best results, the pencils work great on Hippie Crafter's watercolor paper, which does come in 9x12 or 11x15 sizes. There's a money-back guarantee along with an email for refund purposes, and of course, the normal info you would expect, like the company address, the company email, and the company website are listed. It lets you know that they do conform to the ASTM D4236 regulation, classifying them as non-toxic, and that the pencils are made in China. Inside the tin, there is a neat little hippie logo design going on in the very top. There is a booklet that is included, which basically shows you other products by the company that you can consider, which they are suggesting. There is a thank you section from the company and information on where you can share your creations if you want to, and information on how to get in touch with the company in case you want to work with them in some capacity, which I thought was really cool that they were throwing that invitation out. The pencils themselves are layered in trays, and there are 3 levels. The trays are actually the standard tray you see in most budget pencil sets. Not too flimsy, just strong enough to hold the pencils in place. However, I would say be careful because it does seem like it's super easy to bend. There are holes to grip each tray on both the left and right side. You simply remove one tray in order to access the other 2. I did notice, and I am sure you can see that from the video, the barrels did have some color bleeding in the wood, and this was upon opening the product. Now, this could be due to the pencil sweating in transit. There's truly no way to know at this point. The pencil itself is a hexagon shape. The barrel is mostly black with silver writing that does stand out pretty well. The end of the pencils do contain a color chip, and the pencil is domed. Therefore, it will take sharpening the pencils before you can tell if the lead is actually centered. Of course, the shape of the pencil itself is to help stop it from rolling completely away if they ever want it to run from you. Do keep in mind, I always suggest that you try your best not to drop your pencils because it can not only break the lid outside, but damage the lid throughout the barrel. So now that we've gotten a first impression of the pencils, let's remove the tin and start swatching the pencils to see how they dissolve with water. So as we move into the swatching portion of the video, I did decide to time-lapse it as well as cut some scenes. I just didn't want to put you all through watching me swatch and dissolve 72 pencils. However, you will get to see a good sample size of the swatching and the chance to see colors as they are introduced to water for the first time. I have to say that the pencils swatched out about the way I thought they would. I had already drawn a bit of a conclusion about the pencils just from first impressions, and honestly, they didn't disappoint in the crafting realm of things. The colors are actually vibrant and they dissolve in water well for a fun art slash crafting set of pencils. If I'm being honest, there were a few physical issues with the pencils that I will address more in the review section. But for now, sit back and enjoy watching the colors come to life with water. Afterwards, we will jump into a demo where I attempt to pull off a realistic piece of fruit with as much layering as the pencils will allow. As we move into the painting demo, I settled on doing a pair. Now, I know what you're thinking. I just did a pair a few videos back using those Crayola signature color pencils. But friends, I really felt like I needed a little redemption behind that illustration, so just bear with me. Now, this creation took me over an hour, believe it or not. The reason, or main reason, should I say, is that I continued to test to see how many layers of the pencil I could get to stick on top of each other. I was, of course, testing the blending ability of the pencil, and I really wanted to see if they would leave me with that, less than saturated feel once everything was said and done. Ultimately, I was able to get about 3 layers of the pencil on the creation before I noticed that they started to lift off of the paper. Now, honestly, that was kind of surprising, the fact that I got 3 layers. They really performed much better than I was expecting them to. Now, spoiler alert, this will eventually become a mixed media creation. Although the pencils are advertised as being able to be used wet or dry, I found that the dry coverage was not what I personally like when I'm using something to act in a color pencil fashion. However, that is something that I will talk more about in the review section as well. Now, I am doing this demo on 100% cotton watercolor paper. It is 140-pound cold press. This is a little mini sketchbook that I picked up from Lightwish on Amazon, months ago, 7-8 months ago maybe. And it is really good for doing really quick sketches and testing out different new media that I have, especially if it's water soluble. Although it takes 2 color pencils really well, which you will see in just a moment. Now, I pulled a few different color pencils from across the entire 72 set. Here's the thing. There's no way I was going to test all 72 pencils in an illustration, not just one. Anyway, well, well, I guess it's possible if I was to do one big enough and really put my mind to it, but that's not the normal testing method. So here I pulled quite a few colors from across the different color ranges presented in the 72 set, just to make sure that I had a really good test sample of the colors. We have a couple of reds going on, some browns and yellows and grays and greens. We're going to be using black. Did I use blue? I'm not sure if I used blue at any point, but possibly could have used blue in the shadows as well. But I just wanted to see how, different pencils would perform, whether or not the formula seemed to be different in the different colors, because I have found in the past, especially when it comes to some budget sets, the greens tend to be a little suspect. You know what I mean? So I feel like this was a really good test run. And after doing this illustration, I really did not feel like I needed to do another illustration with the pencils in order to offer my opinion on them. And I know that's a little unusual for me, but at this point, I have used so many watercolor pencils. They all have so many different so many similarities, to them, especially depending on the different range that they come from. I find that a lot of budget pencils, especially if they're white labeled, tend to kind of circulate from the same number of factories maybe, so they have very similar qualities. A lot of the craft watercolor pencils come out of the same circle, maybe the same plant and manufacturer. And of course, this is all speculation, but I am basing this on the fact that I literally have used, and this is not a brag, this is just, to give some insight into why I'm saying the things that I'm saying. If you check the review section on the channel, there has to be more than 20 possible reviews on just watercolor pencils. So I just didn't feel like I needed to do another painting, because the pencils performed, I feel, to the best of their ability in this particular illustration, and enough colors from across the entire set was tested in order to offer an opinion. So we will be just jumping right into a review of these behind this illustration. I do want to take time to point out that, this will become mixed media, as I said earlier. So pencils, color pencils, I'm going to be bringing in Prismacolor pencils in order to add the opacity that I really want, the wholeness, the roundness, to add highlights on, and to just spruce up the color, give it an additional layer, because I knew that I wanted to try to push for a little realism. I knew I couldn't get another layer of watercolor pencil on and dissolve it without lifting out more color. I didn't really like the fact that it didn't cover the entire tooth of the paper when using it in dry form. So my Prismacolors are always a very good bet. And it gave me, again, the opportunity to add another layer. And, with realism, you're layering, you're aiming for those transparent layers. Although, I'll be honest, Prismacolors can be a little opaque. So I always save this for the last step if I'm doing something mixed media. Anyway, friends, I'm going to see you guys on the other side of this illustration with my final thoughts. Crafter 72 Premium Watercolor Pencil Set. This was quite a testing experience. I'm just gonna recap just a little bit, just to touch on it, just in case you're just watching the review part. The pencils come in a sort of solid black tin here. It has a belly band that has all of the manufacturing information on it. You remove the belly band in order to access the tin. You're gonna see the Hippie Crafter logo, and all of the relevant information is there. Of course, these are a craft/budget set of pencils, so there is no light fast information presented with the pencils. So this is more of a fun art pencil set versus a fine art watercolor pencil set. So I wouldn't want you to get these and think that you're gonna get the same performance as you would from like your Aperture, your Derwent ink tints, or your regular Derwent watercolor pencils, or say like a Caran d'Ache, or even your Staedtler Carrot Aquarelle pencils. These are going to be more on the craft budget side of things. So I'm going to definitely be looking at and reviewing them from that particular perspective. Now, of course, everything that I say is solely my opinion based on the experience that I've had using watercolor pencils in my fine art journey. So, and the pencil set was sent to me for free and for testing and reviewing purposes, just in case that makes any difference to you about my opinion. Although I am probably, and I do my very best to be very unbiased. So the tin actually latches pretty well, didn't have any issue with that. On the inside, you got the Hippie Crafter logoing. I did take time to swatch out the pencils, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Inside, there is a booklet included, which does kind of advertise other products that they have. Now, if you had a chance to see the actual unboxing video for the 36 half pan watercolor set, I did kind of take you through the Hippie Crafter website in that video. So if you haven't seen that review, you haven't, or even the first impressions video, because that's where we go through the website, then go check that video out if you want to just kind of excuse me, surf around with me in their site, or you can just go to the Hippie Crafter site yourself. So that booklet is included. Now, they come in 3 separate trays. The trays, for what they're worth, are not the most flimsy, but they're not the most sturdy. I will say you do need to be careful lifting the pencils out, because I did have issues. You may want to put a piece of tape on each end of each tray to make it easier to lift it in and out if this is a pencil set that you decide to get. Okay, let's just jump right into talking about the pencils themselves. There are a couple of issues, I have to say, unfortunately, that I noticed right off the bat, and this was before I started to swatch the pencils. First thing was that of the 72 pencils, I had several broken pencil lids. Now, I'm not sure if that happened in the process of transporting from the warehouse to me, but I know since I've had the pencils in my possession, I have been very careful with them. I have not dropped them or set anything heavy on top of them. So upon opening the package, I did have quite a few broken, 6 or more. You can even see here on this yellow where the wood is kind of broken down there. And that's definitely not from sharpening, because I haven't sharpened that particular pencil. I also noticed that several of the pencils were actually crushed. Several of them, especially on the very top tray. Outside of that, there were several pencils that sort of had maybe lacquer or printing issues, just a little bubble in the overall coating here and there, especially around the silver part for some of them, and I wasn't sure why that was. But you can see here from like this particular pencil, that pencil is actually crushed and broken there, and all of the pencils along this line have some type of damage to the bottom of the pencil around the dome. Now, I don't know if that's just the paint chipped on that one, or if that pencil is actually crushed like this one was. I do believe this was the worst one of the bunch, so I'm not sure if maybe the delivery guy dropped something on the box or the package on this side. I just don't know. I would like to think that all of the pencils coming out of the warehouse is not like that. I'm really wanting to put that on just the transportation of the pencils, mainly because most of the other pencils outside of maybe, see, that's what I mean by it's a little difficult to get those trays out. So you definitely might want to put some tape on the end. For the most part, the rest of the pencils didn't have much damage to the paint. I also noticed color bleeding. I don't know if this color bleeding is from, again, sitting in the warehouse, maybe the humidity that they were sitting in humidity or something of that nature. But there are several different pencils that have color bleeding on the wood, especially those that contain like a more violet pigment. And I thought it was so strange that it's just those colors that seem to have sort of a reddish violet pigment to it. I mean, some of them in the blues as well, and it just seemed to be the second tray of the set. I didn't really see that on the first tray or on the bottom tray. Well, a little bit in the reds on the first tray. And I did not use that pink pencil, so this isn't anything that I did. This is literally how the pencils look when I opened it. Now, I'm pretty sure Hippie Crafter has like money back guarantees. And I got the set for free, so I'm not gonna make a big deal about it. But if you were to purchase this set, I'm pretty sure that Hippie Crafter's support line would step in order to try to make everything right. And I always like to encourage people that if you should get a product that you don't like, before you leave a bad review, reach out to the company's customer service and see how far that company is willing to go in order to make things right. And then if you can't get anything accomplished, take to the keyboard. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure if I was to reach out to them and say something, because the representative I worked with initially that contacted me about the products was super nice and super chill, and I'm pretty sure they would more than likely send me another set. But there's no need, because although there was that type of, or there may have been that cosmetic damage to the pencils, it doesn't have anything to do with the actual performance, the quality of the pencils. Now, if they were completely destroyed, that would have been a different thing, but they aren't. But these are things that, of course, because we're going through a review, I have to point out. I'm not trying to poo-poo on the pencils by any means. Okay, so I swatched the pencils out, of course, that you got a chance to see. And the swatching went pretty well. The colors are pretty vibrant. Again, there are 72 colors, so you have many colors to choose from. However, they are watercolors, so they do have the property of being mixed. I'm sorry, they are a watercolor pencil, so they do have the properties of being mixed like a watercolor. Now, I, of course, did not do any color mixing tests like I normally do with the watercolor pencil set, simply because I did the illustration, and in the illustration, I was able to see basically everything I needed to about the watercolor pencils, from their blending ability to the way that they would mix, whether on paper or together. You saw one part of the demo where I actually pulled paint from the yellow pencil lid and used it inside this little palette in order to make a wash. So I basically did test out all of the normal techniques that I use with a watercolor pencil set, and I really did not find any issues. Again, they are in the craft budget range, so I don't want you to expect them to be super pigmented, but the truth of the matter is, for what they are, they hold their own. They really do hold their part. Now let's just take a look at the illustration that was done. Of course, it was the pear, and I do feel a bit of vindication from that pear that I did with the Crayola signature color pencils. Now, I did not find that I was really lacking. If I needed to, I do believe in the illustration I used 2 greens, I used a couple of browns, I used at least 2 of the reds, I used 2 yellows, the yellow ochre, and one of these golden tones over here. Of course, I used the black. I didn't use the white. I noticed that the white was not really opaque when I did the swatch test, so it was a nice kind of selection of colors that was used in order to pull off this illustration, and they did work well In the mixed media aspect, I was able to layer colored pencils on top of them without any issues or them lifting. Now, as I said during the painting demo, I got to maybe about 3 layers of the pencils being layered on top of themselves and then being dissolved with water before I just felt like the brush was pulling the color off of the paper. But that actually was a really great start for the underpainting of this picture. So I can definitely see them being used in the realm of like card making. I can see them being used in the realm of coloring books. I can see them being used in the realm of scrapbooking. And even if you wanted to do fun art, of course, without like fast information, I would never suggest you trying to do a fine art piece or to try to do commission work. But if you're talking about just working in your sketchbook, just working with practice, doing projects with your kids, yeah, definitely teaching in the classroom, seminars. You need a couple of watercolor pencils that you feel safe with traveling with on the go. For instance, if you do plain air sketching or urban sketching and you happen to use watercolor pencils to pull off your sketches, then you know you want something that's going to be budget friendly, something that you're not too scared that was too expensive that you might lose. So I can definitely see many different facets that these pencils would fit into. Now, when it comes to price, the pencils are $29.99 over on the actual Hippie Crafter site, and they are $25.99 on Amazon. Now, I really did dig around the sites that I normally do, Blick, Jerry's, Jackson's Art, just to see if they would happen to be in any of those. They were not. Now, I did not check Michael's, so you might possibly be able to get them at Michael's. And of course, there is no more Joanne, so there's no sense in checking joannes.com. Although, if they, but I think their discounts are only applying in stores, so who knows? But yeah, now if I had to give these pencils a rating on a scale of 3 to 5, considering their relative category of crafting products, I would put them at about a 3.5. I do have to factor in, you know, that all of the pencil damage that came initially upon opening the tin could not have happened in actual transport, like the actual bleeding of the color into the barrel actually being chipped up around the lid in some of them, and even on the layers where there wasn't any damage to the actual bottom of the barrel. I do have to take some of those things into consideration. The fact that the tray, I feel like, could have been a little bit more sturdy. I'm even like factoring in the fact that unlike any other set I've seen, the manufacturing information nor the actual imagery for the logo itself is printed on the tin, other than the Hippie Crafter logo. So, you know, I am good with these being at a 3.5, 4. Somewhere in that range. I will put them above a lot of watercolor pencil sets out there as far as the budget realm go. But then there are some other sets that I feel like price range, you get just as many pencils and are kind of comparable. Or maybe you could put a little bit more money to the side, spend $25, $30 on a more professional line. You may get a smaller set, maybe 12 pencils, maybe 24 pencils, but you do get the chance to blend these pencils just like you would watercolors. So even if you had a more limited set, you could make many different color mixtures from that. So there's my 2 cents on the pencils. I would say they are not a bad pencil at all. They are something that I wouldn't tell you not to buy. If someone asks me, did I recommend the pencils? I would say yes, absolutely. Give them a shot. At $25.99 for 72 pencils, that's actually pretty decent pricing. It's about on par, give or take $1 here or there, depending on the brand, for this particular realm of watercolor pencils. So there you have that. Hopefully some of that information will help you make a more informed decision about whether or not you want to add these pencils to your collection. Now, this review might not have been as comprehensive as some of my other ones, but I will say that I feel like I've kind of reviewed the pencils before. So yeah, friends, If you heard, picked up on anything you found helpful or liked throughout this video, whether it was in the unboxings, watching, painting demo, or the review, please don't forget to sprinkle a little love and give this video a thumbs up. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know, have you used Hippie Crafter watercolor pencils? What do you think of the product? I think the illustration turned out really, really well. They can definitely be used. I wouldn't shy away from using them again. They're not too expensive, but when I think about the fact that I have several sets that are a little bit better and on the more professional range, for me, they might not be the first set that I grab, but I would definitely say that I can see these being a good starter set for a beginner or for a crafter. Let me know what you think, friends. You can share the video. If you're new and you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live and when we upload. You can check the video description for all of the relevant links, my friends, including links to the watercolor pencils if you're interested in picking yourself up a set. And there's also a link to like the most recommended product list in case you want to take a look around there and see if there's anything else that piques your interest. There's all other type of links, from the Defyantarts website to the Patreon to all of the social links, as well as the artist wish list. So check everything out. Enjoy the rest of your day. And remember, as I tell you at the end of every single video, my friends, just keep creating.